God bless fantasy football. I can't believe it's already Sunday.
Ridiculous.
After a long week in sports, but one of the best days has finally arrived. Fantasy Football Sunday, and we have the not only rankings, but starters that should be in your lineup that you may be thinking, I don't really like him over this person. So I can't wait to provide those for you with Sasha Durkin, Andrew Rogers. One of the first times that we're actually sitting next to each other for a Sunday show.
I know. Sorry.
Sasha's normally at home on babysitting duty.
We won't get into that here. Between the dog and younger children, adolescents.
It happens.
You know.
No. So, you know what? Punishment, right? Probably sitting down and watching football. Does he like watching football?
Actually, yeah, he plays.
Oh, well, then it's not really a punishment.
No. He really enjoys it.
No.
He likes watching film, which is good. Like he should.
Hey, like every good athlete, you got to watch the film to better yourself. Let's go through the quarterbacks all the way down the list. We'll start with quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. I'll give a streaming option at defense as well. But this is the best part about this episode is we don't only give you the people that we like. We also take out somebody that you're like, wow, I would start this guy every week. Why are they telling me not to? I did that with Tom Brady last week, and guess what checked out? Tom Brady was one of the better sits last week against the Saints, and the stats speak for themselves.
Yes. Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Ladies first. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I'm just a gentleman.
When I sent my notes over, I heard a very audible my first little note here. So I put down Marcus Mariota. I will tell you why right now.
I like Marcus Mariota. I just took a lot of heat for saying him a couple of weeks ago.
Well, now everyone will a round of applause
for Andrew.
For me right now. For me right now.
My head can only get bigger.
I picked Mariota because of the matchup with Seattle. Seattle's giving up the 14th most fantasy football points to QBs. In fact, Seattle's been pretty average against the opposing quarterbacks so far this season. Mariota's shown that he's a dual threat, right? So while he had 2 interceptions against the Rams, I like him this weekend specifically against Seattle.
I will actually go to the team that you just mentioned, the Rams. When they faced off against Seattle last week, Matt Stafford had an awesome day, 272 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Cardinals is who the Rams are facing this week. They've allowed the most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks early on at 26.94 fantasy points per week for the quarterback. Mahomes had 5 touchdowns in week 1. Derek Carr had over 18 fantasy points in week 2. This offense for the Rams has shown a lot more promise after week 2 than they did in week 1. We saw Allen Robinson come alive. Cooper Kupp is Cooper Kupp. Tyler Higbee is leading all tight ends in targets this season. Who knows still?
Close enough.
That would work better with what I'm about to say. Okay. I'm mapping it out. No one else knows, but let me just get there. It's like the math scene in The Hangover. Like, when all the digits are just flying over the head.
Yes.
Who knows still? Is that what I ended with? Who knows still what the running back situation is going to be like in Los Angeles? I got there. And because of that, I think Matt Stafford will put on a shootout against the Cardinals. Kyler Murray will also put on a shootout. He's an obvious start. But so many points are being scored against the Cardinals this season. Matt Stafford is my first lock in the quarterback position this week.
For sure. I also like Jared Goff against Minnesota. I'm sure he's shown that he's better at home than on the road. I think most quarterbacks and teams are in general, but the Vikings defense is allowing 7 yards per pass attempt. And of course, last week was a nice win over Washington where Goff had 20 of 34 for 256 and 4 TDs. So,
Jared Goff, Super Bowl quarterback. He didn't win, but he was in a Super Bowl.
He was.
Thanks to that defense. The offense did not perform. I actually like the guy on the other end of the sideline, Kirk Cousins. I think he is going to be a
MVP.
I think he's going to be an awesome bounce back play this week. It's going to be a shootout. It has been a shootout for every game against Detroit this season already. It was great for Carson Wentz last week with that team being down the majority of the week. But Kirk Cousins looked like Kirk Cousins on primetime TV.
Yeah. Yep. There you go.
That's what he does. On primetime games, he looks like he has no idea what he's doing out there. But on noon starts, Kirk Cousins, that's
comes
a guy
alive.
that you just put instantly into your lineup.
The coffee's still flowing at that time of the day,
Oh, goodness. That's where he looks like the MVP. Certain people wish him to be. division opponent, and this Lions defense, like we talked about, has allowed the third most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks so far this season. He faced the Lions twice last season. Of course, that's what you do in a division, throwing for 275 yards and a touchdown, also an interception in that first game. But that second game, 340 yards and 2 scores. Justin Jefferson went off in those 2 matchups. Adam Thielen played really well in those 2 matchups. Now, where has Adam Thielen been? I don't know. He should get back to Adam Thielen ways. Will it be this week? Will it be never? Who knows? I'm more on the leaning toward the side of it will be this week. And Kirk Cousins is just in an awesome spot to succeed. Who do you hate?
All right. I always fudge this last name up. So I looked it up before I put in the pronunciation, and then he pronounced it. So it's Tua Tagovailoa. Yeah.
Sure.
He pronounced it. I looked it up on the YouTube, and it's on the internet. So it has to be correct.
His last name is Tagovailoa. It's Tagovailoa. Some people just make the L.
Is how I'm going to pronounce it.
Just say Tua. I just am a big fan of Tua.
Everyone knows it's Tua when you're referring to him. Okay, so I don't really super like him this weekend, and I don't like the matchup.
I don't really super like him this weekend.
I don't. Buffalo's
that sounds like my niece talking.
I am.
I don't really super like this Barbie anymore.
Yeah, I'm going to cut it tear off. So I don't love this matchup for Tua this weekend. Buffalo's defense has been fire and has only given up 8.65 total points per game so far this season, which is the second lowest total in the entire league. So I don't have a good feeling about it.
The Bills are awesome. I wouldn't start Tua this week either. You know the song?
Wait, am I alive? Did we just agree on something?
We did.
Oh my gosh.
But it's pretty easy to agree against the best defense in the NFL and the Super Bowl favorite, even with the week that Tua had last week.
Yeah.
You know the song, Where Are You Christmas?
No.
The Faith Hill song, Where Are You
I just recently got into country, and the only artist I like is Chris Stapleton. So no, I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's a Christmas song. I don't know. Do you
hate Christmas music?
Do you hate Christmas?
No, I mean, I don't love it.
Unbelievable.
Sorry.
Unbelievable. Well, so she doesn't know that song. Christmas, that's the best time of year.
I mean, my husband agrees with you, but I do not. Halloween is around the corner, and that is my time.
Crazy. You just like to scare people.
Yeah.
Christmas is that time where, family comes together. You get to celebrate. I celebrate the birth of Jesus. I don't know about everybody else out there on Christmas, but I think that's what you're supposed to do. People get gifts on Christmas. You get to set up the tree, the lights, the ornaments.
I do like that part of it, but that's about it.
So you don't know the song "Where Are You Christmas"?
No.
Is that in?
Is that the song that's bringing us in today?
Is that in the Grinch? Isn't that in the Grinch?
I don't know. You would assume I'd probably seen that.
Well, Cam will do some research for it. But let me get to my point here. So you know the song "Everybody But Sasha," "Where Are You Christmas"? There should be a song made, "Where Are You Wilson?"
Oh,
Russell Wilson. Seriously, why can't I find you? That's another line in the song.
Oh, okay.
That you don't know.
I don't know. So I'm just going to stare blankly into the camera.
A lackluster performance against Houston in week 2, 219 yards, 1 touchdown, and a pick against the Houston Texans. Yeah, this is a guy that's getting paid buco bucks to play football in Denver. Should be succeeding massively with Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, the running backs that they have. Where are you, Russell Wilson? Where are you?
Yeah.
Wilson now takes on the 49ers this week. They've allowed the 4th fewest fantasy points per game to quarterbacks so far this season. Where are you, Wilson? Will ring true again in week 3. It will. Today, Russell Wilson will be nowhere to be found.
You're probably not wrong.
I said Russell Wilson this week. You know who other people said last week outside of Tom Brady? Matt Stafford. I'm sorry. In week 1, they said Matt Stafford. In week 2, they said Tom Brady. Now people are saying Russell Wilson. I'm with it.
It always depends on the team that they're playing against. So that's how I based all of my stuff this week. So, we'll move on to running backs now. I have on my list Miles Sanders. Sanders has rushed for at least 80 yards in each of the Eagles' first 2 games. Plus, Philly's playing Washington, whose defense has not been great against a ground attack so far this season. So
Miles Sanders just gives me the shivers. Like, ooh,
Like
I
the
don't
good
like.
kind?
No, I don't like Miles Sanders. That running back room is so difficult to predict.
Mm-hmm.
Not only because Kenneth Gainwell can produce just as much, Boston Scott same way, but Jalen Hurts runs the ball way too much for Miles Sanders to ever be somebody that I am going to back.
Okay.
Just
Fine.
he's always taking off and running, and it's just I'm not saying that it's a bad play by any means.
Yeah.
I'm just saying personally, I'm sitting over here when I do fantasy drafts and just DFS lineups per week. I never even think about Miles Sanders because Jalen Hurts will run more than he will. It's crazy. It's crazy. Some guy. Okay, let me just preface this really fast. I had a sports bet last weekend.
I almost had him on my list, but I took him off.
It was Sunday. All 5 players: Lamar Jackson rushing touchdown hit, Darren Waller rushing touchdown hit, Amon-Ra St. Brown touchdown hit, who he's looked unbelievable this season.
Yeah, agreed.
I had Derrick Henry on Monday night. The reason I skipped my last one on Sunday was because his name was David Montgomery. And David Montgomery ran all over the Packers defense, all over them. And the Bears completely mishandled using him in the red zone. At one point, they had Justin Fields in the shotgun on 4th and goal from like the half-yard line and expected a 180-pound quarterback, I don't know how much he weighs, to get into the end zone. David Montgomery weighs more, right? So why wouldn't you just hand it to the guy that's eating?
Mm-hmm.
That's point number 1. Point number 2, if you are going to screw my bet, Chicago, and you chose to, why wouldn't you put David Montgomery behind Justin Fields and push the line forward? Right. Or better yet, have Justin Fields take the dang snap behind the center. What is going on? I'm
so glad that you're redoing this. We talked about this like early in the week.
I'm heated. I'm still heated. But David Montgomery is my play this week at the running back position. He rushed for, I'm just going to keep just reminding myself of what happened. 122 yards and added 14 receiving yards on 2 catches, had 15.6 fantasy points, should have ended up in the end zone, never got rewarded. Thank you, Chicago. The Texans have allowed 27.4 fantasy points per game to running backs so far this season. That's the 9th most in the NFL. Plus, they've allowed the most rushing yards to running backs, and no team has allowed more than Houston last season.
Yes. I actually have the other team that you just mentioned. I had Dameon Pierce on my list. Pierce has averaged 14 touches and 58 scrimmage yards through 2 games. However, it seems like the rookie will be a little bit more utilized in week 3 against the Bears, who have allowed over 200 rushing yards to the Packers.
Lovie Smith comeback game too.
Yeah.
He's going to want to get that rushing attack working against Chicago. I like Travis Etienne as well. Ooh. That one is probably a stinger to most people out there because you're thinking, why not James Robinson? James Robinson looks like he never got injured after last season. He's played 63% of the snaps. He has between 15 and 20 fantasy points in his first 2 games and is currently listed as a running back 6 on the season, but here's why. They're playing the Chargers this week, and the Chargers defense has kept nearly every team in check so far this season. They should have came away with a win against Kansas City. I can't believe they threw the ball late in the red zone on Thursday Night Football, which led to a pick 6. Keep that in mind. But also, I think the defense got screwed on multiple occasions when Mahomes had balls that were intercepted, but then were reviewed or they were called not interception. I don't even know how it was working. He threw like 3 interceptions that game, but had none on his stat sheet. Yeah. It was crazy how much favoritism was going toward Patrick Mahomes in that matchup. But that defense has been super strong this season. And the reason I think Etienne will finally go off, he hasn't yet, but I like him more than Robinson, is because passing will become more of a must in this matchup.
Okay. Yeah,
and check down passes in particular, I think they'll use Etienne more in that way. That's why they drafted him in the first round just a couple of years ago. He's got a high ceiling that he hasn't hit yet, and it's not something to dismiss at this point. More usage will come, and the Jags have a chance to prove that this week for this guy. I like him.
I dig it. I like that. I like the answer.
It's kind of a crazy
But I see how you got there.
But I just think it's time for him to explode. It really is.
Go off. I hate Christian McCaffrey.
Wow.
This week. The Saints D's only allowed 228 yards and 1 TD combined in the first 2 games. While obviously great player any other time, I wouldn't start him this week if you're wanting to see some return on a start.
I actually don't hate that, but everybody should start Christian McCaffrey still, because if you don't and he goes off, then
you'll be really
will never
sad.
forgive yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
You would rather start that guy and have him put up like 7 points in fantasy than not start him and him put up 25 when he just has a monster game. Now, the Panthers have not been a good team this year, and Christian McCaffrey has been seen not getting the same production that he has in years past, even with worse quarterbacks than Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
So I don't hate that either. But I will still start him, because if I don't start him, like I said, I will never
hate
forgive
yourself.
myself. Yep. Chase Edmonds is my hate of the week. Raheem Mostert was one of the top waiver ads this week after week 2. Edmonds continues to see fewer snaps and carries as the weeks go on. The Dolphins have the Bills. We mentioned that with Tua already. The Bills are a bottom 5 fantasy points per game in allowing running backs to get the points needed to be productive on your fantasy teams. They held Derrick Henry in check last week. I think he only ended up with like 25 rushing yards. He did get into the end zone. He's Derrick Henry. It seems like he always does that. But it also seems like, because of the familiarity Mike McDaniel has with Raheem Mostert, the connection they had back in San Francisco, it seems like Edmonds is slowly going to get pushed out if Mostert can stay healthy.
Yeah. That makes sense.
On to wide receivers.
Okay.
Oh, do you want to say something?
No, I was say, should we do wide receivers?
Oh, there we go. Great minds think alike. On to wide receivers. Who do you like?
I have Mike Williams on here. Williams had 8 of 11 for 113 yards and a TD. Keenan Allen sidelined last week. So, and Justin Herbert's a little bit banged up heading in the matchup against the Jags. So
he should play, though.
Game,
he should
I think he should, but the passing game may be in question a little bit for this game.
Wednesday, he was taking his limited practices, and all reports were leaning toward him playing, so he should still be in the lineup.
The only reason I bring any of this up is that the Jags secondary was has been throttled in their only road game of the season. So that's why I picked Mike. Mike Williams.
Mike Williams. They looked awesome, though. The Jaguars defense looked awesome against the Colts. DK Metcalf is my first on my list, and it's kind of a crazy start to the season for this guy. I know Geno Smith has thrown him the football, and Geno Smith is nothing to brag about. Neither is Drew Lock, to set the record straight. But wide receivers so far this season have gone off against Atlanta. The Saints wide receiving core did it, and the Rams wide receiving core did it last week. The Falcons defense is so weak that DK is due for a big week. And Lockett got all the receptions last week. That's kind of how it works in Seattle. Lockett will either go off and DK will take a step back. He'll get his targets. He'll get his receptions. He'll only have about 70, 80 yards. Now, he hasn't broken 40 this season yet, but here's the time to do it with how weak that secondary is, especially for the Falcons. DK paced Seattle in targets in week 1. He earned 25% of the target share. The Falcons defense has given up 270 and 2.5 passing touchdowns to opposing quarterbacks this year. Not to say Geno Smith will touch those numbers. As I said, Jameis Winston and Matt Stafford are much better than Geno Smith. Stafford is kind of the one to think about there. Jameis Winston is, he can go up and down almost like a roller coaster. But this is the week that DK finally gets back to DK.
I can see that. I have Gabe Davis on my list here. In the last 8 games with the Bills, Davis has scored 10 touchdowns. 10 of them. 10. If his
How many touchdowns?
10.
Oh.
If his ankle's good against Miami, he is questionable. But when I was reading through the reports and things like that, sounds like he's going to start. So against Miami, the Dolphins D is allowing 255 yards a game. So
Bateman went off. Duvernay went off.
Yep.
I can easily see Gabe Davis going off.
For sure.
Especially after sitting on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
So he got that extra week of rest. He's finally back to his full strength. I like Garrett Wilson, another top waiver ad of week 3. 8 targets in week 1, caught 4 balls for 52 yards. 8 targets in week 2. 14 targets in week 2. 8 catches, 102 yards, and 2 touchdowns. all of which led the Jets in week 2.
Yeah.
The Bengals may not scream great matchup on paper, but it's another game where the Jets should be chasing points and having to use the pass to keep up with Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense, which is slated to respond at some point after the 2 brutal weeks that we've seen them play. Flacco has been excellent. The Jets have already passed on 75% of their plays this season. That's a league high. They're going to keep the air raid offense moving against Cincinnati.
Agree on that one. I hate Tyreek Hill this week. Again,
well, that's mean.
I said this week, just this week specifically.
So this is funny though, because you hate Tua, I hate Chase Edmonds, and you hate Tyreek, all of which have been Miami players so far. Yeah. We hate Miami
Screw
this
Miami. Week. So Buffalo is just shutting stuff down, their defenses. They've given up 149 passing yards per game so far this season. That's the second lowest in the entire NFL. So I don't like Tyreek Hill this week.
Christian Kirk is on my hate list. As stated earlier, it may sound like I'm retracting my statement. I also should mute my computer. The Jags will be forced to throw to win, but big plays haven't been there with receivers outside of the name of Devontae Adams against the Chargers this season. Christian Kirk reminds me more of a Hunter Renfrow in that offense than he does Devontae Adams. Not to say Christian Kirk hasn't put up big wide receiver 1 numbers this year for the Jaguars. He has. But when it comes to just overall ability and capability, I like Devontae Adams more than I like the name Christian Kirk. And Hunter Renfrow, like I said, matches up better in that stance. Had only 3 catches for 21 yards against the Chargers. In Thursday Night Football in week 2, the Chargers shut down every Chief at that time.
Yep.
I already stated the dump-off passes should be more effective than the deep ball. I just have a feeling we'll also see some more picks out of Trevor Lawrence this week. I'm staying away from Christian Kirk. I am. I got to stay away.
Yeah. Stay away. Away.
Yeah, away.
So for tight ends, I've got George Kittle. I know that he's listed as questionable right now, but he did practice before the last game, which gives you hope that he's going to start against the Broncos. And whatever it is that they're doing with their defense, Denver, that is, has given 68 yards and a TD per game to their opponent's tight ends this season. So you got to go with Kittle.
I've been high on it's about time this player starts to break out. I did that with ETN. I did that with DK Metcalf. Now I'm going to do it with Kyle Pitts. He's got to break out soon, right?
At some point, you hope.
I mean, this guy had 1,000 receiving yards last year.
Yeah.
He's only had 38 receiving yards through 2 weeks this season. I know Mariota is a step down from Matt Ryan, but the way we saw Matt Ryan play in week 2, kind of looks like Mariota's a step up at this point.
Right.
He's 15th among tight ends and targets, but at some point the Falcons will recognize their best playmaker should be getting the football. Drake London is almost proving that he's the best playmaker right now on that offense, and he's a stud. I'm not taking that away. But Kyle Pitts was drafted 4th overall for a reason just a couple of years ago by the Atlanta Falcons. It's time to revise his game and get him out of the pit.
Yeah. Get him involved. I've got Dallas Goedert, Eagles. Your boy's averaging 17.
Your boy.
17.
I feel like that comes out at least once an episode with you.
Yeah, it does. Whenever I refer to myself, I say your girl is feeling whatever. Anyway, your boy's averaging 17.8 yards per grab for the Eagles so far this season. And they're taking on Washington, who their defense, in my opinion, is kind of gross.
Washington?
Yeah.
Without Chase Young, yes.
Yeah.
Tyler Higbee is another one that I just completely despise at the tight end position, but I really like the matchup that he's in this week. Plus, the production has just been there. I have to buy in right now. I can't be that guy that sits on the sidelines that, puts my flag into the sand and says, no, I'm not going to stand with Tyler Higbee. Get him off my lawn, whatever it is. He currently leads all tight ends in 20 targets. I said that earlier on. He's also played 96% of the snaps so far this season with LA. He had 7 catches for 71 yards in week 2 on 9 targets. He gets the Cardinals this week, who have allowed more production than any other team to the tight end position. Arizona has allowed a league high 29.1 fantasy points per game. That's 19 catches, 212 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns. Granted, that was to Travis Kelce and Darren Waller. Tyler Higbee has no, he's not even in the same sentence as those two tight ends, but this is easily the best spot for a tight end to succeed. Anytime I can get a tight end against the Arizona Cardinals this year, until they start figuring out what to do with the tight end position, I'm taking every tight end each week.
Yeah. Agreed with you. I love going to the hate section because I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this one specifically. I have Mark Andrews on here. I understand that. Wait, hold on just a minute. Give me a second. I knew that was going to be your reaction. I understand that he's led the Ravens with targets.
I feel like
season.
a minion. What?
But I only say this because they're playing against New England. Yes, I understand New England's kind of looked like a hot garbage truck mess of disgusting. However, they're playing at New England and a defense that's only allowed less than 200 receiving yards a game this season. And I only say this on hate for this week specifically.
Okay. Let's stop you right there. Before I get to my hate of the week. Okay.
I see what you're doing here.
They played Miami in week 1.
Yes, they did.
Mike Gesicki is just a nobody in that Miami offense. Plus, they already talked about using him more as a pass blocker, more than a tight end. In week 2, they played Pittsburgh, a offense that had a tight end score in that matchup.
I know.
Sasha.
I was watching that.
And I don't know if you saw what Mark Andrews has done this season.
A lot.
But Mark Andrews last week had 31.2 fantasy points in a PPR. Actually, this I think is a 1.5 PPR league. So keep that in mind. 9 catches, 104 yards, and a touchdown against the Jets. He had 5 catches for 52 yards. This is an offense that peppers their tight end.
I'm aware. I said that this week specific and that I was going to get a lot of crap for this.
You couldn't be more wrong.
We'll see.
Crap.
We shall see.
You're buried under 100 yards of crap with this one.
We'll see.
I just put my shovel in the sand. Maybe that was the flag for Tyler Higbee instead of an actual flag. It was my shovel. And you're way down there.
I'll take the flag for
I can't even
if
see
I'm
you.
wrong, but I don't think I'm going to be wrong.
You know what? Andrew's a speck to you.
I'm going to squash you.
I hate Irv Smith Jr. this week. I believe he was an overreaction coming out of week 2. He was a guy that was targeted 8 times, 5 catches, 31 yards, and a touchdown. Don't forget, though, he put up a big old 0 in week 1. Kevin O'Connell's offensive scheme does not favor the tight end position. I don't know how often I have to tell people that, but Irv Smith Jr. should not be 51% owned right now this year in fantasy. That doesn't mean I hate Irv Smith Jr. Irv Smith is one of the most talented tight ends, and he came out of the Alabama offensive schemes that we've seen under Nick Saban and many other good tight ends have come into the league. O.J. Howard was one of them that also got misused in Tampa Bay. Irv Smith just won't ever succeed in this scheme under Kevin O'Connell's supervision. Yes, it'll be a shootout. Yes, Kirk Cousins will bounce back. Yes, the wide receivers will get their looks. I said Adam Thielen's going to bounce back this week, but I'm not buying the hype into Irv. I'm just not. I'm not overreacting. I overreacted last week, and I believe it cost me if I can go back and listen to the tapes. I'm not doing that with Irv Smith.
Okay.
Don't give me the, okay, Miss Mark Andrews on the other side of the table. Stop it. Stop it. Let's do one more thing here.
Okay.
I want to give a streaming defense this week. Defenses come and go. Drop them, add them, drop them, add them. That's what you do every week. Don't just stick with the same defense. Unless you have a top 3 defense like San Francisco, Tampa Bay, all the way down the list. I mean, I had Tampa Bay last week. They had 28 points. But keep in mind, they're playing Green Bay this week, and Green Bay is known to shred defenses. So play Tampa Bay at your own risk. I like Dallas this week. Dallas, another one of the more added defenses this week. I'm talking about a lot of people that are just attracted to the matchup here, just like they were with Garrett Wilson when they added him, and plus some with other players. They're 61% owned. The Cowboys currently rank 3rd in the NFL with 8 sacks through 2 weeks. The Giants have allowed 8 sacks, the 3rd most in the NFL, and it's Monday Night Football. And this is the ideal matchup to have somebody playing on Monday night. And why not it be your defense that can push you over the edge against your opponent?
Right. That's a very, very good point there.
Wow.
I agreed with you again.
Wow.
We agreed
she
twice?
comes back. She was in outer space with Mark Andrews,
Mark
but
it
she
down,
finally
'cause
got
this might
back
be
to
the
planet
first
Earth.
time that we ever agree twice on one episode.
But there you have it. Those are our rankings for Sunday. Kickoff soon to be approaching. So get that starting lineup set. We didn't get any start-sit questions in for this episode, which I found was kind of weird. So it seems like everybody should be locked in. And if you aren't, just revisit the rankings that we provided for you. Sasha, anything else?
I don't think so. Good luck to all of you.
Less than a minute.
In.
Less than a minute until kickoff. Enjoy week 3. There are many things a man can do with his time, but none are better than this from one of the best shows out there, The League. God bless you, and God bless fantasy football.